Welcome to A Quick Jump. I'm Rich Bowers, and today with me I have Christina Torres. Hi, Christina. How are you?
Hi, Rich. I'm doing pretty good this morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I'm excited to talk about AI synthetic data. So, Christina, let's dive right into it. What is synthetic data?
So, synthetic data is going to be data which models its real life counterpart, but it's data that you can think of as fake data, but which is intelligently made. So, typically, it's going to be made from like intelligent algorithms or a model of some type, but it's going to be made to reflect those statistical relationships and the different components in that data.
Okay, all right, got it. So then you have real data, which would be things that are actually happening or even tangible aspects. And you have synthetic data, which is in essence made up data. Why would a company choose to use synthetic data instead of the actual data?
Well, when you're using synthetic data, there's a lot more you get to curate. That's a big benefit. And one of the main things is going to be personal information. While when you're using real life data, it's going to contain a lot of sensitive information or just information that'll link directly to a person. When you use synthetic data, you're able to either get components that will look really like that sensitive information, but not actually reveal anything personal.
Okay, and then is it also a benefit because it might just be data that doesn't exist, or that could be a hypothesis? Is that
Oh,
also a reason for synthetic data?
absolutely. When you create synthetic data, you can use prediction algorithms to kind of guesstimate where the data would end up when you don't have the real data to actually back that hypothesis up. And it allows you to play around with different situations that may not have actually had the time to have the data collected for it. And on top of that, you also get a lot of bias removed from the data set that would have been there if humans were collecting that data.
Excellent. Is there any type of security benefit to using synthetic data? I know you mentioned personal information. Is there any other aspects to it that could be almost safer to use synthetic as opposed to actual?
Obviously don't have that personal information being leaked to multiple different people who would be in charge of collecting that data, like
Mhm.
credit card information, social security numbers, all of those details. You don't have to worry about there being any chance of a leak when you're using synthetic data because you're not handling that information that would link to anyone. So there's definitely a huge security benefit in the sense of when you're storing that data and collecting that data.
Okay, very cool. I can see the perks of that. So let's go into how is it generated? How is synthetic generated? Is it only AI based?
So if you use AI kind of loosely, then yeah, absolutely. It's all AI based
Mhm.
because what is AI but just a bunch of statistical algorithms and a lot of smart methods that make it model a brain? Really, I would say it boils down to three methods where it's either going to be a more statistical route where you use statistical algorithms like logarithmic regression in order to predict what those numbers would look like. It could be something that's more model based, where you train a more intense ML algorithm or model that will predict what those future values look like or analyze a given data set to produce values that are very similar, statistically like it, but not the same information. Or you can take it a step further where you use a deep learning model, which is already trained on many different data sets, is used to picking out patterns and matching patterns, and then produces a data set that matches whatever type of data you're looking for. But each one of those different levels are going to offer like a different level of nitty gritty control that you have on how much the data matches.
Understood. They're getting, or as the amount of data is accumulated or put into the algorithms and is producing this type of synthetic data, is it safe to say it's not necessarily always all fake? And is it not ever all fake? Is it normally a hybrid of actual data and maybe a combination of the predictive information that they're filling the gaps in?
So a lot of times you have actually a choice in the type of data set that you'd want to. I would say that it's either that hybrid data set that you say, that's a
Hmm.
mixture of fake data and the real life data, where instead of just like removing all the information and coming up with new information that matches, you just remove the personal information or sensitive information, like once again, credit cards, social security numbers, home addresses. You come up with replacement values that would match that, but not actually link it to people. If you require a situation where, say, the data doesn't exist, like you mentioned earlier,
Hmm.
then you're going to have completely made up values that would most likely be seen in that situation.
I could see the benefits of that for maybe astrophysics, where there's a lot of kind of guesswork that goes into it, or at the quantum level as well. So almost polar opposites. What are the downsides to synthetic data?
Well, the biggest downside is going to be quality control because, you're not dealing with real data. When you're dealing with real data, you have accurate information. But because you're not dealing with that anymore, now you have to worry about the model hallucinating or coming up with data that actually isn't a best fit for it. So you risk there being falseness in the future predictions that you make based on that data just from the fundamentals of how that data was made. So quality control is going to be a big, big concern.
When you're talking about quality control, data that is produced, the synthetic data that is produced, do the individuals who are, I guess, creating it or pulling it out, do they know how it always got to that conclusion? Let me kind of clarify a quick second. When you look at algorithms for, say, YouTube videos, the developers who are putting these algorithms together have stated that they aren't sure how it always works. Could that be the same situation here with synthetic data, or are they always able to pinpoint how the results came to fruition?
So it's going to go back to those three different routes that we talked about on
Mhm.
how you can produce that data. If you're using a more statistical route where it's just the equations, then you could theoretically trace your way back through those equations and show off how that answer came to be, especially with visualizations. But as we start going more into the model AI based, where we get closer information that should be matching up, that's when we get that black box effect where we no longer can see how we got to from point A to point B. And yeah, we can't fully back up how we got those data points.
Interesting. It seems like the more we interact with this level of technology, we're running into more of that black box of magic, we'll say. So, Christina, this has been excellent. I feel better when I have to explain synthetic data going from here on out in just these quick, short minutes. I always appreciate you coming on and sharing your knowledge. For Quick Jump, I'm Rich Bowers. Take care, everybody.